Hello and thank you for joining us. My name is Ben Sheen. I'm a managing editor here at Stratfor, and I'm joined by our VP of Tactical Analysis, Scott Stewart. Today we'll be talking a little bit about the current situation in Yemen. Scott, we've seen some real destabilization recently, but actually for the country itself, unity is kind of a new concept, isn't it, for Yemen?
Yeah, to really understand what's going on in Yemen today and just the morass that we find there and the number of players, we really need to look at that history. The construct of Yemen as we see it on the map today as one unified country is really something that didn't exist prior to 1990. And even in the years since 1990, the country's been racked by civil war, both in the south with the southern secessionists, with the Houthis in the north, and of course the tribal types in the hinterlands. So really, Yemen's always been divided, and the hope of keeping it together as a unified entity is very difficult.
To what extent do you think external players have had an influence on Yemen, both from countries like Iran, but also the interest that countries like the United States have shown in terms of controlling the situation so Yemen doesn't become a haven for terrorist or jihadist groups?
Well, certainly external players have always played an important role in kind of the divisions in Yemen. We had the south of Yemen as a British protectorate from the 1800s. And certainly we saw during the Yemeni civil war in the 60s, we saw the Jordanians and the Saudis backing the royalists while we had the Egyptians fighting with the Nasserites. So, these foreign influences have always been there, and that really hasn't changed today. We see, obviously, the Americans, the UN, the Europeans want to try to stabilize Yemen so that it can really kind of defend itself and protect against this al-Qaeda threat in the hinterlands. But at the same time, you have this Houthi movement now that has received some nominal support from the Iranians. And we have tribal types in places like Marib and Hadramaut who are actually receiving support from the Saudis. So there really is quite a bit of external influence and meddling going on there still today.
Now, at the moment, the Houthis are in quite a dominant position. They've been strong in Sana'a for months, since really taking power in the capital city. And from January the 19th, we started to see a real ramping up of tensions in the capital. They surrounded the presidential palace, and now they've actually effectively overthrown the government there. What do you think are their long-term aims and objectives? What do they want from this stick?
Well, really, with the Houthis, they were never happy with the proposed constitution and the way that it limited kind of their part of Yemen. Basically, they wanted a bigger piece of the pie. And in many ways, what they want to do is kind of replicate the areas that they controlled prior to the 1962 revolution. So what we have is the Zaydis wanting to kind of reconstitute that Zaydi core that was their kingdom up until 1962. One of those important things, by the way, that we're looking at right now is the province or governorate of Marib. Marib was always part of the north. Marib is important because of the energy assets there. And so the Houthis would very much like to take the energy fields in Marib because they've already taken the Ras Isa export terminal and the other export terminals on the coast of the Red Sea. So if they can get these energy fields, then that allows them to kind of consolidate control over at least that portion of the energy infrastructure and, of course, the income that comes along with that.
Absolutely. And as they're in such a dominant position at the moment, do you think they're actually interested in having a power-sharing agreement within the country? What's to stop them from actually just completely taking control and running the country as they'd wish to?
Well, I think there again, it's the divisions and really the kind of the base. It's going to be very difficult for them to get much popular support in the south. And of course, in Hadramaut and the other places that were always kind of part of the tribal lands under the British protectorate, it's going to be very, very difficult for them to establish control there without a very, very firm, kind of iron fist type approach. And that's going to take a lot of resources. And even if they control, at least a portion of Yemen's oil assets, they're really not going to have the wherewithal or the resources to be able to devote the forces required to keep that iron heel down on the South and on the tribal types.
Certainly, and this is going to be an area that we're going to continue to track closely because it's still very volatile on the ground and a lot of things could happen, to be honest. Scott, thank you so much for taking the time to explain this to us today. For more information on Yemen and the surrounding area, please continue to read Stratfor.com.